vom Alexander Hirner und der Titel ist Ethereum, a decentralized software platform for people and things. Have fun.
Thanks, I hope you will. Yeah, my name is Alex. I founded the Meetup group 1 year ago, and I want to share some experience about what Ethereum is and where is it actually useful in today's world and changing requirements for big data. First, let me have a quick show of hands. Who is familiar with cryptography? Solid? Yeah, like this, okay. Who has ever heard about blockchain? Yes, okay. More than cryptography? Okay, all right. So essentially, Ethereum is a new way, a new paradigm, so to speak, of how to store and how to process information. And I would like to continue with where it is located and which field it's important to have it. And then especially for IoT, the same questions. Whereas in the end, I will talk about how our community in Vienna is involved in this. So what is the status quo of, let's say, data storage and processing? Well, first, we all know it's getting more and more. By 2050, there should be 50 million devices connected and all create data for the, let's say, betterment of humankind. You can see it in public records. You can fight diseases better. You can quantify yourself. You can improve your fitness and all these things. So having more of it is actually a good thing. Basically, of course, we have information overload, but let's say we can solve this. The second aspect of having this data is it's getting centralized, and it's getting centralized with a good reason. You have, of course, Facebook, all social media. That's what we know, but also in the other fields, for example, in machine-to-machine, as G is doing, they now have deployed 10 million sensors, and they track everything and analyze everything to improve their machines. So the real value, or why it is happening, the centralization, is because you have some economics of intelligence, I would say, because only if you aggregate data, if you combine them, if you have a large sample to draw from, then you generate really the value, and then you can have your personalized Google Maps and navigation. Otherwise, it's not possible. And the same field applies to governments as well. And just think about smart city. You need the data of all the citizens in one place. So it's common practice and it's a lucrative business model. The other thing, probably all of you are aware as well, this can lead to some cases where it's misused. And well, the most prominent one are the scandals in NSA, with the NSA, but also more under the radar. It's also a data problem. If you think about the banking scandals, if you have things where you keep track of balances and it's not clear to everyone what it is, speaking of auditing, and you have some asymmetric information and it adds up, you have a lot of potential to fraud and make bad things. And it's also not only on the large scale, it's also on the small scale. If you think about one case, Bart de Witte told me, he's quantified self-enthusiast, he used a sleep tracker. And this company was a startup, like young, and it went bankrupt. And in the fine print, it was stated that the data is actually theirs in case of bankruptcy. It was taken as a collateral, and so after this happened, it was gone, and which you can solve now with a new way of thinking, how to store and how to retrieve and how to process data, and that's actually what the blockchain is about. So the blockchain replaces the lower two parts. In the end, you have all the data stored by many nodes in the system. You have also one incentivation layer to keep such a network alive. Like you have a token to access it. And then another interesting property of such a system is that you can access it without any permission. So everyone who participates has the same rights to access it, to use it, to store it, and there is no gatekeeper function at all. A common misconception about Bitcoin is, for example, that it's anonymous and you can't track it, trace it, or something like that. It's all encrypted and it's all underground. That's actually not true. It's the opposite. Everything what is on the blockchain is entirely open and can be verified from the outside until the very first inception of such a network. So there's a record of the transactions which is there forever. Some other interesting property is that it's always synchronized, meaning that all the nodes have the same information, so the asymmetry of information is basically gone. And this applies now to, let's say, dead data, as it is with Bitcoin. You have just a few bits indicating that you either have such tokens, which then, because of the economic incentive, turn into money, some people call it. And yeah, this is the property where you cannot use it for much else than having a balance higher or lower than that. So Ethereum, and more specifically the brain father Vitalik Buterin, he thought about why not make each transaction changing the state of this global ledger programmable. So it's not only simple rules which change the state for all participating nodes, but it can be programmed. And with that, you add a lot of flexibility. It's a flexibility that you could call it, it's an open computer system. It's a deterministic computer on a global scale. Now imagine you could run all the things which require normally some auditing from outside. You could run it directly on the blockchain and so have no auditing costs. To be more precise, or better yet, to see it maybe in a big picture, we had these developments already before. So the open source software development became very widespread, and whereas it was before a means to save cost, it's now a competitive advantage. So people who outsource their code, they benefit from peer check, they benefit from platform effects, and so on. The same we could see with open data. So it became a habit, a good habit. And also companies use this method. So they outsource the data for competitions to win, for example, or to make a new algorithm with their data, and they profit from it. And so Bitcoin blockchain is just an evolution in this way. And what you can have nowadays is already money, as I said. You can have name registrations, which ties back to the talk we've heard before. So how to address things or whatever uniquely in the world without a central authority. You can do this already, and it's in the project Namecoin, for example. And what we now see with Ethereum and the programming language, you establish a way how to run whole organizations very differently, because if you open the governance mechanisms of such, let's say, contracts on the blockchain, you also disclose how they work internally, who is entitled for voting, who is entitled for payouts, for example. Then think about the donation system. Donations are quite obscure normally, and if you have all the records on a publicly accessible blockchain, you can get rid of the uncertainties which is normally associated with, okay, I donate my dollars to Africa. in terms of plain old bookkeeping, there's also the possibility to have this kind of processes run in the open, so you can have a bank basically, which is every second auditable by anyone, and you would save a lot of problems that were plaguing actually us in the last times. And also a more crazy concept like having whole organizations which run on the blockchain and having a own purpose of it. But I will draw the conclusion later how this can work out. So you might actually ask how that will work out, or what's the purpose of the blockchain in terms of IoT, because you're all here. And the main comparison is that on the blockchain, no one knows who you are. So everyone can access it with the same rights. And this led to some thoughts by recently IBM how to use this as a general purpose way to govern and to run all the things we like to use, but also stay anonymous. And so one of the missing links in some, let's say, business models in IoT is hampered by the privacy considerations. And so in this way of thinking of Ethereum and other projects, what you could do, for example, is you have a registered device on this blockchain, and you can always refer back to this persistent storage and always reach this device without anyone knowing what exactly it is. So it has the rights to be a fridge, to make contracts, to order something, without anyone knowing that you ordered it with this device number. It's not necessary. And also, if you think about sensor networks, another good example, probably, if you have some rain sensors who will determine whether this insurance will pay out or not, you can have a kind of authoritative answer by that if every sensor is committing to this transparent blockchain, because then everyone can see that the judgment was done fairly, procedurally fairly, and no one has to worry about being front run in this aspect and so forth. Another thing that is from a technological point of view interesting, that it's not only combined with a blockchain but also secure messaging, asynchronous messaging, which is another part of the project itself. It's Whisper, and so it's end-to-end, not traceable, end-to-end encrypted. It's also asynchronous, which is an important part, and it's in the earlier stages of development. And the other thing is, if you look at big blobs of data, for example YouTube, you could also store it in another way, more like in a BitTorrent fashion, and that's what actually IBM also demonstrated 2 months ago. They set up some demo where a washing machine ordered the next detergent and reported some problems for service, how to get service. The thing is that all these negotiations from devices are actually allow them to be autonomous and also anonymous. So that's the game changer here. So how is this project actually set up? It was conceived by, as I said, Vitalik Buterin. He became a winner of the Thiel Prize and the World Network Prize. I don't remember exactly, but actually he won before Mark Zuckerberg, which is a nice indicator, I would say. And it was crowdfunded by $12 million. They are now living off this savings and develop the project further. And you have now 3 main hubs. That's in Berlin, the headquarters where it's developed. In Amsterdam, there's another development hub, and Switzerland, the legal hub. It's now almost, let's say, released from for the blockchain part. So a few weeks more, I guess, and the roadmap looks like this, because why isn't anyone doing it already if it has only benefits? Why is not everyone using blockchain and all these contracts instead of millions of other standards we've heard? There are some roadblocks. First, on the left side of the blockchain technology, it's not scalable yet. So there's our development roadmap that will change that with how to split up the blockchain and how to make them talk to each other, so we have a more heterogeneous landscape. And from the storage point of view, the incentivation layer must also still be integrated, which will follow along, I would say, the next 1 or 2 years. And then the hassle with having this sustainable will become less and less, and then the adoption really makes sense. So this is the two. And also the whole thinking, how to think in this way, made several other projects which do away with the blockchain, but take it more to a localized level, the consensus finding and the transparency. So you can have inter-organizational processes, fully transparent, and you can do this with Aries project, for example. Here in Vienna, we are a bunch of people, interested people. I founded it basically because the concept is worthwhile, it has potential, and to gather the talent here in Vienna, we make our own projects, like Ether Starter. It's a crowdfunding platform which is decentralized, who has exactly these properties that everyone can access it, and you diminish the barriers of entry. And we stay in contact with the headquarters, occasionally travel somewhere. And yeah, our CTO, sitting here, right in the front, give us a wink. Yeah, thanks a lot. He will also continue this project more and more in the future. And yeah, so this decentralized crowdfunder is one project. There are many others, for example, forecasting markets with Augur, where reputation ties in. So reputation is also kind of a thing that you want to own, but you don't want to have everyone know that you are this person. So how to combine the two aspects of it must be persistent, but it also must be not tied to my physical presence and must be combined in other ways. That's a big game changer in this way. And you can see it. Yes, also peer-to-peer ride sharing like Lassus, all those projects sprung up, and a few of them will be successful and probably have a large impact on this paradigm shift from open data to open processes. So takeaway, very briefly, the IoT business models are hindered by privacy concerns. The long-term management, the responsibility to update firmware and such can be outsourced to public infrastructures like blockchain, like the storage concepts. With that, the notion of open firmware, it's also in this kind of movement included. And to push this intelligence to the edges of the network requires this software as Ethereum to make them intelligent, to make them work out. And it also needs different hardware, for example, hardware encryption in very small devices. And then, yeah, then we can see the much more possibilities on a global scale of sensor networks and so on. Okay, this was it, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Yes. So Bitcoin transactions are not really anonymous. How is it with Ethereum? Once you initiate a transaction, still no one knows where did it come from. You can choose an identity every fraction of a second. However, if you have once determined the link between your physical identity and the wallet address, you are identifiable. So it's the same with Ethereum. If you want to keep protection from that, there are some other techniques which let you disguise this if you want, and also the communication protocol, which is next to the blockchain protocol, the Whisper of Ethereum, makes this possible to communicate your balances just end to end and should not be traceable at all. Yes.
As soon as you link, for example, a concept like reputation to one entity on the blockchain, I'm not free to choose any other. So I can either choose losing my anonymity or losing the reputation.
The thing is, you can always distinguish whom you tell it to. And you can always mix the reputation you have as an anonymous entity with whom you disclose it to. And if you have, let's say, 3 networks where reputation is important, for example, couch surfing, for example, car sharing, and then something else, you could combine them and disclose them to one party only and prove that you have possession of these 3 reputations, and don't do it to the other one. So you can balance it on a case-by-case basis, and the thing is, this reputation is still persistent. Yes, of course. Yes, if you have a secret to share with someone, then it's shared. Yes, but you can choose, and that's the point. Correct. Tracing you back once you are identified. Correct. This is the common property, so it pushes the responsibility much more to the individual to handle it. Correct. Yes, please.
My knowledge on cryptology as well as blockchains is really old. You could start a literature on that to get more familiar with that.
Yes, it depends on your field of interest, what is maybe your purpose beyond this technical introduction, because then it gets clear what you need to know from all this stack. But there is a book written a short time ago. It's in German, and it's called just Bitcoin, I think, which covers the legal aspects. And I don't know about the technical aspects as well, at least the legal. And the more technical, if you have an IT background, just go for the white paper, the original ones, Ethereum and Bitcoin. That's fine. I also link a video which gives a quite nice overview of the information distribution, which also helps a lot, and in the sources. Yes. You say basically that there's a progress in the way how to form light clients, and light clients are one important ingredient to make IoT work. And there are several cryptographic advances, but also protocol advances, and one of them is Stella. It just came out recently, right? Yes. Yeah, it's super fast-moving space in general. Yes. So maybe one more question or two. I don't know.
But I wanted to come back to your question on a line with introduction to the blockchain.
Mhm.
It depends a bit on what area you are interested in. For example, in finance, there is a very good review of UBS. They dealt with how to apply blockchain to financing. And it's also worthwhile to read the white paper of IBM, how they want to apply the blockchain to the IoT. I mean, it's very well written.
I agree. Two recommendations were the paper about Bitcoin and its application from UBS and the IBM Adapt initiative, Device Democracy. Yes, thanks. Okay, maybe one more? Some hands? Yes, okay, then we're finished for now. Thanks for having me. Thanks.